431,000 jobs added to U.S. payrolls in May, many of those from the flood of census workers hired by the government. The unemployment rate, though, barely budged. Christina Romer, the chair of the President's Council of Economic Advisors, joining us now to talk about it all from the White House. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Always great to be with you.
Just want to ask your reaction to the jobs report. Although there was a lot of hiring when it comes to those census jobs, and those are real jobs, they're also temporary jobs.
No, you're absolutely right. We do need to realize that, census workers, as you pointed, they are real jobs, but they are going to go away over the summer. I think maybe the number you want to focus on is we did add 41,000 in the private sector. That's down a little bit from previous months. But I think the other thing to focus on, though, is we now have had, 6 of the last 7 months we've seen private sector job creation. Private sector employment is now some 500,000 higher than it was back in December. So certainly the trajectory is in the right direction. I think what we'll be looking at is certainly what more can we do to make that private sector number even stronger.
And that's my question to you. Given the stimulus plan, a lot of that money still hasn't been spent. What ammunition would you say, Ms. Romer, that the White House has at this point to really push job creation? Because you hear more and more economists talking about a jobless recovery.
So I think the important thing is, of course, to keep in mind we are adding jobs. If you go back to where we were a year and a half ago, where we are today is an incredible improvement. You're right, the Recovery Act still has a lot of ammunition to be coming out, especially over this summer and the fall. The president has also been working with Congress to try to get some other targeted measures, and he's going to keep fighting for those. He discussed them in his speech in Pittsburgh, things like a small business lending fund, more aid to state and local governments. That's something we saw in these numbers. State and local employment went down 22,000. We know their budgets are in a very difficult place. Some extra aid for them we think could keep teachers in the classroom and really be very helpful. We've also very much been supporting extensions of unemployment insurance to make sure that those workers who are out of work have money to live on and money to spend in their local communities.
And that's the issue here, the long-term unemployed, 15 million odd Americans, many more underemployed. And that number, I think, doesn't get enough attention whatsoever. What can the White House do about that? Because we see more and more employers, both in the private sector and the government, hiring contract workers, shortening work weeks, et cetera.
So I think first on the long-term unemployed, of course that's a problem. It's devastating for those workers and their families. The best thing we can do for them is get the overall unemployment rate down. The more this economy recovers, the more even the long-term unemployed will be brought back into the labor market. On your underemployed measure, again, that's an important one. One of the numbers I think is not getting much play in today's report is what we're seeing in terms of hours, because not only can firms respond to improving conditions by adding more workers, they can extend the hours of people that they already have employed. And that's gone up for the last 4 months. We see a big increase in the number of workers working full time and a lot fewer people working part time because they were forced to. And I think that is an encouraging trend and something that's going to be very important in people's lives.
Turning to broader economic issues here in the recovery in general, which you are focused on day in and day out, more and more calls on the Fed to raise interest rates, start tightening spending on the government side. How's the White House addressing that right now? Is that the right thing to do at this moment?
Well, of course, the White House doesn't comment on monetary policy because the Federal Reserve is an independent agency. But I think they're looking at the same kind of numbers that we are in terms of what's actually happening to inflation. And those numbers have consistently been coming down rather than going up. And so that certainly, in terms of where the overall state of the economy is, I think inflation risk is not very high at all.
Thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it this morning. Thanks so much.